We're talking to two state championship football coaches, one from Minnesota, Garrett Mueller, and one from Camp Point Central in Illinois. Two guys that latched on to something that we now refer to as sprint-based football, which is an ancestor of Feed the Cats and the Feed the Cats approach. And both of these guys have been really good friends of mine. And here I am at the age of 64, in the twilight of my coaching, but I live on through these two guys, and they're like sons to me, and I'm really excited about being able to talk about something that is truly kind of a revolutionary thing. The first question I have, if somebody says, "What's your elevator speech?" Like, well, what would you say if you only had 35 seconds to answer? Like, what in the hell is sprint-based football?
It's a football program that's results driven and performance based. Practice should lead to performance, and if you're not seeing it out on the football field, then it shouldn't be a part of your practice. And if you're not timing and you're not measuring and record, ranking, and publish, you don't know whether your kids are ready to play or not. What's
more important? Or I should say it. I think a lot of people think that this sprint-based football is kind of a soft thing or something. But I think it's important to note that if it didn't win, we wouldn't do it.
Yeah. I mean, just who we played in the state championship game, we were outsized by 50 pounds at every position, except for our fullback. And it was a hard-hitting physical game with two teams that, wanted to run the ball 100 times in the game. And there was nothing soft about that in any way, shape, or form.
I tell people all the time that ask that question, like our sprint-based Feed the Cats approach, I fully believe, because, and Brad was in the same boat. Like, we did it a different way for a long time. I believe that on a Friday night, we're able to be more violent on the field, playing the game at all positions, at the line of scrimmage, in the skill positions. We block and tackle better because of our sprint-based approach. And when it boils down to, right, football, like winning and losing football games, the team that blocks the best and tackles well and, doesn't make mistakes, executes, that's what's going to win football games. And a sprint-based approach allows us to do all those things better.
And when you go sprint-based football, one of the many weird things is you stop conditioning and stop grinding, and you never let today ruin tomorrow, and you never burn the stake. But that flies in the face of all tradition. Traditionally, the reason why people raise four fingers in the air at the start of the fourth quarter was because they had worked so hard all week to be good in that fourth quarter. So what do you say to people that just don't trust the no conditioning thing?
Results, right? I mean, we talk about wins, right? I think results speak for themselves. I know, when we talk to players and have conversations with them either during the game or after the game, and they're telling me consistently, and again, at all position groups, whether it's an offensive lineman, a linebacker, defensive back, you name it, when they're coming to me halfway through the second quarter, and telling us, hey, these guys are tired. We're gonna start to pull away here, and that's consistently happening year over year, week to week. It's hard to deny, those results, I think, and that's the biggest thing, right? I mean, outcomes obviously are great, but just anecdotally, in our conversations with players and what they're saying and how they're feeling, and then you go watch them perform, you can start to really see the discrepancy between the two as you continue to watch a football game. And it's just almost like, two divergent paths. You just start to pull away as the game goes on. And it's a fun thing to watch for sure.
Brad, do you think that almost every team that you play against does more conditioning than you do?
Yeah, 100%. I kind of think of it the opposite approach. We scored anywhere between 22 and 30 points in the first quarter in about every game we played this year. We had 8 of our 9 regular season games were running clocks. We went into halftime up 36 plus in almost every game that we played, except for the state game. And so when you jump on teams early and you're faster and stronger and really more physical completely and fresher, that fourth quarter shouldn't matter. We gave up the most points on the season. Our number ones gave up one touchdown from week 2 to week 11 of the season. And so our statistical worst quarter was the fourth quarter because that's when our reserves were in. And so, we're all about getting on them fast. And I think if you're in that grind mentality, you're going to be in these, these long games, and your guys they're not fresh to start the game. They're not fast to start the game. And then when you talk about injuries and opportunity for injuries, most of our guys were out in the first half of every ball game this year, and that allowed us to, play in the state championship game with 100%. We didn't have one shoulder, one ankle, one anything. Our guys were legit 100% healthy in the state title game this year.
And Garrett, didn't you say that your team was also 100% healthy?
Yep, we can echo that sentiment. Like everything that Brad said, is the same way. It's funny to hear like when they would do interviews with coaches of opposing teams, like leading up to the game in media or papers, wherever they talk about like, oh, Stewartville loves to start fast, so we can't let them start fast because they're going to get out ahead and then we can't catch up. And 100% that was our MO as well. Was we were out to 28 35 point leads at, midway through the second quarter by halftime, and our varsity, our starters were either out at halftime or early in the third quarter most games. And so like Brad said, like opportunity for injury is just reduced so much to the point where our guys just aren't taking the volume of hits throughout the course of the year because we get out so fast and get the lead. The game's really over before the fourth quarter even starts. And so because of that, we were 100% healthy, dressed every guy got on the field, every person that dressed. We had 61 guys dress for our state championship game, and all 61 of them stepped on the field and played at least one down, in the state championship game, which is awesome. And that's everything you could, you dream of to be able to offer that experience to your guys, not only to make it to that game and play at that game, but for every kid to get on the field and play. Pretty awesome experience.
Yeah, I think I know of at least 3 other schools in other states that won state championships with sprint-based football. And then my good friend Eric Becker in Madison, Connecticut at Hand High School is in the semis, and they're everything. They're RPR, they're speed bands, they're everything that we do, he does. So I get testimonials constantly, and they all act like one of the best things about sprint-based football is that nobody gets hurt. It's almost beyond reasoning to me. But I like the idea that if games are over at halftime, you're not going to get as many kids hurt. I've seen some studies in soccer where it's 90% of the injuries happen in the last third of the first half and the last third of the second half. That fatigue leads to injuries. And if you have a football team that comes out on Tuesday and they're tired from the day before, and then you just pile on that, maybe that fatigue does it. I think just the fact that you practice less, your practices probably aren't as long as other schools. There's not as many collisions as well. Do you guys both really back off on collisions?
Yeah, we just wear pads once a week. And so, depending on the opponent that we're playing, honestly, if they're not very good and we know it's going to be a quick game, we will have a few more in practice, just to continue to keep our guys ready. But in weeks where, and it sounds like it should be the opposite, and I think this is where a lot of traditional coaches get it wrong, in those tough games when your guys are going to have to give it a lot, for a long period of time. If you then take a lot of that out of them in practice all week, then they're not going to have it for the game. So definitely, and I'm a believer in it. And just, I guess, 21 years of coaching, but I can sense when our guys are ready, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So like Wednesday before we left to go to the state championship, we had a couple different Team D segments. We were working on a couple different fronts. And I could feel it early on in that segment. I could tell by how our guys were hitting, the pads popping, they were getting to the ball, they were excited and having fun. I didn't need to see a lot more. And so there's a lot of times that I'll cut it when I see what I want to see. We've got our stuff in. I know they can align right. I know that they're playing their assignment. I don't need to see much more because obviously we're not getting the best look on our scout team anyway. And so to consistently pound each other against that, it's just a waste of that finite. If we have this much energy to start the week and then we take half of it away in practice, then that's all we got left. So we want to try to give them as much as they can for that Friday game. So a lot of times I'll cut it when I feel good about where we're at.
Are you similar, Garrett?
Yeah, and I think for the most part, our practice weeks are probably pretty close. Brad and I, Mondays we're not in the field at all, and Tuesdays and Thursdays are really pretty light. We're helmets only. So Wednesdays is our only practice that maybe somewhat looks like resembles a traditional football practice. But even then, like Brad said, our reps are limited, and we're just making sure they're doing just enough to be ready. And we want to be mindful of the accumulation of those reps and hits throughout the week, so that we're as close to 100% healthy and ready for Friday night. It's counterintuitive to, like what you said, Tony, what most coaches think it's going to be a tough game. So we need more practice this week to prepare for that. And it's really the opposite, almost of that completely, because we want our guys 100% healthy and in shape and fast to start Friday. And, we already talked about starting fast. Most of those teams that are getting ready to play us, they come in at whatever, 60, 70%, because they've been, practicing 3-4 days a week. And we're 100%. And so we get out so fast in the game, then, so it's over before the third quarter even starts. So we always, we laugh when we see like previews of the game during the week. There was one, we had a big rival opponent week 2 this year. We had to play them early. We never played them that early. Good football team. Was in a state championship game just 2 years ago. And it was like a Tuesday news clip or whatever. And they were on the field practicing full pads on Monday. And our players came in the next day. Said, "Oh, coach, did you see those guys? They were practicing outside on Monday this week. They're going to be dead tired by Friday." And, sure enough, we won 40-10, I think was the final at the end of that week. And so it's been such a huge benefit for us to be able to execute and play better on a Friday night, but then just maintain the health of guys throughout the year, just because of that accumulation of, not being tired going into Friday. And then a 14-week season, that we play, when you make the state championship, that's, it's a long year. And so we just got to make sure guys are on the field and ready to play by the end of the season at that point as well. So big part of our success is having all of our best players on the field, 100%. Like that's, of all the things that sprint-based football provides, that's got to probably be 1 or 2 in my book. Because if we got our best players on the field, we're going to be in good shape.